It's time to build another Smash Bros character in Dungeons & Dragons, and this time we're diving into Xenoblade and building Shulk. It just so happened to be a member of my Discord's birthday, so I let him choose, and I'm pretty happy he went with Shulk. Now Shulk is good at buffing a party, buffing himself, and having a very interesting sword. So let's figure out how to incorporate all of that into a Dungeons & Dragons build. First, let's start with the species. We'll keep it simple, go with human. This gives us a skill proficiency, and Shulk lost his parents when they were on a research expedition, so he probably inherited some of that researcher mentality, so we're going to go with history. Then we also get to choose an origin feat, and while Shulk is very intelligent, there's going to be one big downside to this build, and that is his health. So I want to mitigate that as much as possible by grabbing the origin feat, Tough, giving us an extra 2 hit points of health per level of this overall build. Then when it comes to a background, I want some ability scores that are going to help this build while also feeling semi-true to character. So we're going to grab one of the new backgrounds from the Faerun book and grab the background, House Cannith Heir. This is all about carrying on a legacy through invention, scholarship, business, or diplomacy, but it does heavily focus on investigation and sleight of hand for your skills. Then on top of that, it gives us the Mark of Making feat. This is a Dragonmark feat, and it comes from the Eberron campaign. It gives you the feature Artisan's Intuition. So when you make an Arcana check using any artisan tools, you can roll 1d4 and add that number to the ability check. You also get the feature Spellsmith, so you know the mending cantrip, and you always have the magic weapon spell prepared. You can cast it once without expending a spell slot, and you regain the ability to cast it in that way every time you finish a long rest. Then after that use, you can actually cast it with any spell slot you have, as long as you have some spell casting ability. Then finally, you get the feature Spells of the Mark. So if you have spell casting or the Pact Magic feature, the spells on the Mark of Making spells table are added to your spell list automatically. It doesn't mean you have them prepared, but it does mean that you have them on your list ready to go. This gives you access to the first level spells Identify and Tensor's Floating Disc, the second level spell Continual Flame and Spiritual Weapon, the third level spells Conjure Barrage and Elemental Weapon, the fourth level spells Fabricate and Stone Shape, and then finally the fifth level spell Creation. Then because I want to focus on the ability to buff a party, but at the same time having some ability to use a sword and enhance that sword in various ways, especially with the different runes that you activate, especially in Smash Bros, there was one really good option, which would be a Valor Bard or a Swords Bard. The problem is that Shulk from Xenoblade is not really the best at social stuff. He's a little more introspective, has some visions of the future, but in general, charisma is not one of his strengths. So we can't go with a Bard, because it just wouldn't make sense. Instead, I'm going to go with a Wizard. This gives us skill proficiencies in Arcana and Nature. We get some spell casting, which I will dive into in just a minute, but I do want to get to the subclass before we dive into any spell casting. We get the feature Ritual Adept, so any ritual spell that you know you can cast without having it prepared, freeing up your prepared spells for other more useful things. Also at first level, you get Arcane Recovery, so when you finish a short rest, you can recover some expended spell slots, but they have to have a combined level equal to no more than half of your wizard level rounded up, and none of the slots can be 6th level or higher. Second level of wizard gives you Scholar, so while studying magic, you get to specialize in another field of study. You get to choose either Arcana, History, Investigation, Medicine, Nature, or Religion, and have expertise in that skill. We'll boost up Arcana because that tends to be a bit more useful in Dungeons & Dragons. Then at 3rd level, we get access to 2nd level spells, and it's finally time to grab the subclass. And Shulk from Xenoblade uses a blade. He uses a sword-like weapon, referred to as a Monado. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. I haven't had the chance to play Xenoblade yet, but there's been an update to a certain subclass that I've been dying to use, and that's the Bladesinger Wizard. So that's what we're going to go with. This gives us the feature Training in War and Song, meaning we can finally actually feel like we're utilizing what Shulk is made to do, because you gain proficiency with melee martial weapons as long as it doesn't have the two-handed or heavy property. So we're going to go with a long sword. You can use the melee weapon as your spellcasting focus, and you can gain proficiency in another skill, so we're just going to boost up athletics. Then also from becoming a Bladesinger, we get the feature Blade Song. So as a bonus action, you can invoke some elven magic called a Blade Song. provided you aren't wearing armor or using a shield. The Bladesong lasts for 1 minute, and while the Bladesong is active, you gain some benefits. You get agility, so you gain bonus to your armor class equal to your intelligence modifier, and your speed is increased by 10 feet. Additionally, you have advantage on acrobatics checks. Then, you get the feature Blade Work, so whenever you attack with a weapon that you have proficiency with, you can use your intelligence modifier for the attack and damage rolls instead of strength or dexterity. This was a big improvement over the older blade singing wizard, so now intelligence will be even more useful in every situation. Then finally, you get the feature Focus. So when you make a Constitution saving throw to maintain concentration on a spell, you can add your intelligence modifier to the total. You can activate this Bladesong a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier per long rest, and you can regain 1 expended use when you use your arcane recovery. But we need to finally dive into those spells. It's very important now. And the only spells we really need are anything that might have to do with divination, because that's kind of a thing Shulk does, but more importantly, using our sword and enhancing the party. And we already have access to 2nd level spells now. So for some cantrips, we are going to grab Booming Blade to hit really hard, Green Flame Blade to be able to hit a target and do some fire damage to a nearby target, Sword Burst to hit everything around you, and then True Strike. This would give us the ability to attack and deal damage with our intelligence modifier, but we already have access to that with our Bladesong. However, once we get to at least 5th level, we'll be able to do some additional radiant damage when we attack with our True Strike. Then for some 1st level spells, we'll grab Mage Armor. It's going to be super useful. It gives us an armor class of 13 plus our dexterity modifier. Then with our Bladesong, we get to boost up our armor class again by an amount equal to our intelligence modifier. So we get to add 13 plus our dex plus our intelligence, meaning we're going to have a very solid armor class. The only real downside of being a wizard in melee is the health, and we already covered that with taking the tough feat. So we're covered on all bases, making us a pretty tanky, hardy frontline fighter, but still being a wizard. Then to boost up our defense a bit more, we'll grab the spell Shield. So as a reaction, you can add +5 to your armor class and block any magic missiles shooting your way. Then usually I'd grab something like Magic Missile for a wizard, but we don't really want many long-ranged attacks. We're focusing more on the sword. So diving into 2nd level spells, we'll grab Blur, so making it so all attack rolls against you are at disadvantage. We'll grab a newer spell called Elminster's Illusion, so arcane wards protect you when this spell is active, and you have advantage on saving throws against spells and magical effects, and if you succeed on a saving throw against a spell or magical effect and would normally take half damage, instead you take no damage. It's basically evasion, but without the initial benefit of taking half damage automatically. However, it still applies to every type of save. We already know that we get the magic weapons spell, but we'll make sure to have it prepared anyways. It gives us a +1 bonus to our attack and damage rolls, and if we upcast it, we can get a +2 bonus with a 3rd through 5th level spell slot, and a +3 with any spell slot of 6th level or higher. Then we definitely want to grab Hold Person. This is a benefit for the entire party, because we get to choose a humanoid that we can see within range, and paralyze it. Any creature that's paralyzed automatically gets all of their attack rolls against them at advantage. And if it's a melee attack and it hits, it's automatically a critical hit, which is absolutely devastating. Then to have another type of blade, grab Shadow Blade. It deals 2d8 psychic damage. You're automatically proficient with it, so it will have the benefits of Bladesong automatically applied to it, and it can have the light and throne properties if you need to. And if you happen to be in dim light or darkness, attack rolls are going to be with advantage. Then grabbing a spell from your background, we're going to grab Spiritual Weapon. This is just another way to play off having another weapon at your disposal. This did get downgraded after 2024, so now it requires concentration, but it's still nice to have, allowing you to have some sort of magical weapon that floats around and you can attack with your spellcasting modifier as a bonus action, dealing 1d8 plus your spellcasting modifier as damage. You can upcast it, dealing an extra 1d8 of damage for every spell slot above the 2nd level. Then, at 4th level of Wizard, we get an ability score improvement. So we're going to grab a feat and go with Warcaster. This is going to allow us to boost up our intelligence by 1 point. So here's our starting scores. Fairly min-max, just focusing on Dex, Constitution, and Intelligence. Then we get to throw 1 point into Intelligence. Then Warcaster also gives us advantage on Constitution saving throws to maintain concentration on spells. Mixing that with our focus from Bladesong means that you should never really fail a concentration check anymore, because your concentration checks are going to be at advantage and be able to add your constitution and your intelligence modifier to it, but we'll really sure that up a little more in a bit. Then we also get some additional features from Warcaster like reactive spell. So whenever somebody provokes an opportunity attack against you, you can attack them with a single target spell as long as it requires an action to cast that spell. And then finally, you don't need to use your hands to actually cast because you can ignore somatic components. 5th level of Wizard gives us Memorize spell. So when you finish a short rest, you can study your spellbook and replace one of the level 1 or higher wizard spells you have prepared for your spellcasting feature with another level 1 or higher spell from your spellbook. You also get access to 3rd level spells at 5th level of Wizard, so thanks to the Mark of Making, we'll grab Conjure Barrage. This allows you to brandish a weapon, using it to cast a spell to conjure similar spectral weapons or ammunition if you're using a ranged weapon, but it still works with a sword. And those spectral weapons all launch forward in a 60-foot cone, forcing enemies to make a dexterity saving throw or take 5d8 force damage, or half as much if they succeed. We'll also want to grab Counter Spell to counter any enemy spell that comes at us, Elemental Weapon to add some elemental damage to our weapon, dealing some additional acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage for an amount equal to 1d4, and also boosting up our weapon, giving us a +1 bonus to attack rolls. Then we're going to grab a few more spells because 3rd level is a big boost for us by grabbing Haste. Haste is pretty massive because it doubles our speed, gives us a +2 bonus to our armor class in case our armor class wasn't high enough already. It gives us advantage on dexterity saving throws, and we gain an additional action on each of our turns. That action can be used for one attack, or you can dash, disengage, hide, or the utilize action. But if you lose concentration on haste, you are incapacitated and your speed is 0 until the end of the next turn. Then to boost up our damage, we can grab Spirit Shroud. Gives us an extra 1d8 extra damage when you hit a creature within 10 feet of you. The damage becomes radiant, necrotic, or cold, and then that target can't regain hit points until the start of your next turn. And on top of that, any creature that starts its turn within 10 feet of you has its speed reduced by 10 feet. You can boost this by an extra 1d8 for every 2 spell slots above 3rd level. Then the last spell we're going to grab is Thunderstep. This allows you to teleport yourself while at the same time booming out some thunderous damage, dealing 3d8 thunder damage while forcing a constitution saving throw. Then at 6th level of being a blade singing wizard, you get extra attack. So now you can attack twice instead of once whenever you take the attack action on your turn. You can cast one of your wizard cantrips that has a casting time of an action in place of one of those attacks. So now True Strike is still useful, but you can just as easily use Booming Blade or Green Flame Blade or Sword Burst for that one attack that allows you to use your cantrip. 7th level of Wizard gives us access to 4th level spells, but there's only 2 that might really help. The first is Conjure Minor Elementals. This boosts the damage you deal by an extra 2d8 elemental damage, as long as the creature's within 15 feet of you, and it gets boosted by another 1d8 for every upcast. Then we also want to make sure we're boosting up the rest of our party and the amount of damage they can deal. So if anybody's dealing elemental damage, we want the spell Elemental Bane. So we get to choose one damage type. It could be acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder. And then the first time a target of this spell takes damage of the chosen type, it takes an extra 2d6 damage. This seems like a small benefit, but if you have this active and more people are doing fire or thunder damage, then it really comes in handy. It's just some guaranteed 2d6 extra damage every turn. And if you upcast this spell, you can target an additional creature. So targeting enough creatures and somebody letting loose a fireball is really going to be devastating. Then 8th level of Wizard gives us an ability score improvement. So we're just going to go ahead and throw 2 points into Intelligence. 9th level of Wizard gives us 5th level spells. So we're going to grab another newer spell from Forgotten Realms, Heroes of Faerun, and grab Illustrial's Mooncloak. So for the duration, moonlight fills a 20-foot emanation around you, giving you or your allies half cover and resistance to cold, lightning, and radiant damage. And while the spell lasts, you can use one option from this spell, ending the spell immediately, but being able to use either Liberation, or you can use the other option, Respite. There's 2 more spells really worth grabbing. The first is Hold Monster. It's essentially the same as Hold Person, but now you can target more types of creatures. And then Steel Wind Strike. This allows you to flourish a weapon, vanishing into the wind and targeting up to 5 creatures you can see within range, making melee spell attacks against each of them, and dealing 6d10 force damage to each of them. You then teleport to an unoccupied space you can see within 5 feet of one of the targets, as if you're just whipping around attacking all of them simultaneously. 10th level of being a Bladesinger gives us Song of Defense. So when you take damage while your blade song is active, you can take a reaction to expend 1 spell slot and reduce the damage taken by an amount equal to 5 times the level of the spell slot used. So most of the time, it's probably better to take the shield spell as a reaction, but if it's a big amount of damage and you know shield isn't going to help, this can really help you out. 11th level of Wizard gives us access to 6th level spells, so we're going to grab Tensor's Transformation. This is a bit of a double-edged sword, especially as a wizard. Because Tensor's Transformation, when it's active, you can't cast any spells, but you gain a bunch of benefits to make up for it. First, you gain 50 temporary hit points, and the spell can stay active until these temporary hit points are lost. You gain advantage on attack rolls that you make with simple and martial weapons, so all of your weapon swings are going to be at advantage. Anytime you hit a target with an attack, that target takes 2d12 extra force damage. You gain proficiency with more armor and shields, but we don't need that part. You gain proficiency with strength and constitution saving throws, and the proficiency with constitution saving throws can be pretty helpful because it just boosts up your concentration checks even more, adding your proficiency bonus. And then if you didn't have extra attack, it would allow you to attack twice. But immediately after the spell ends, you have to succeed a DC 15 constitution saving throw, otherwise you suffer 1 level of exhaustion. Then at 12th level of Wizard, we're going to take another feat and go with Resilient. This allows us to boost up 1 ability score by 1 point. And we're going to boost up our Constitution, because Resilient will also give us proficiency in saving throws with that score. So now it is borderline impossible for you to fail a concentration check, because now you get to add your Constitution, your Intelligence thanks to your Blade Song, and your proficiency bonus thanks to this feat. 13th level of Wizard gives us access to another higher level of spellcasting, so we can grab another fancy sword with Mordenkainen's sword. It creates a spectral sword that you can attack with your spellcasting modifier, and on hit the target takes 4d12 force damage, plus your spellcasting modifier. But this is a floating sword that isn't actually attached to you, so you can pretend you're swinging it, but you can't really use it along with your cantrips or anything. However, on later turns, you can actually take a bonus action to move the sword 30 feet and take another attack. It's basically a slightly more amped up version of Spiritual Weapon. 14th level of being a blade singing wizard gives us Song of Victory. So after you cast a spell that has a casting time of an action, you can make 1 attack with a weapon as a bonus action. So even if you're casting a big spell, you don't have to give up on all that melee attacking. 15th level of wizard gives us access to 8th level spells. So again, diving into Heroes of Faerun, we're going to grab the spell Holy Star of Mistra. You create a glowing mote of energy that hovers above you for the duration, and you can cast this spell as a bonus action. And as a bonus action on later turns, you can unleash a shining bolt from that mote of energy. It'll hit anybody within 120 feet, and it can deal force or radiant damage equal to 4d10 plus your spellcasting modifier. And on top of that, the big benefit of this spell is that when this mote is present, you automatically get 3/4 cover, which is a huge boost to your armor class and your dex saves. And if you succeed on a saving throw against a spell of level 7 or lower that targeted only you and didn't create an area of effect, you can take a reaction to deflect the spell back at the spellcaster. The caster has to make a saving throw against that spell using the caster's own spell save DC. And this is absolutely amazing against some big heavy hitting spellcasters. Then at 16th level of wizard, we get access to another ability score improvement. So let's just boost up our dexterity by 2 points, helping our armor class. Then at 17th level of wizard, we get access to 9th level spells. So we're going to have another great sword to use with Blade of Disaster. This was updated thanks to Heroes of Faerun, creating a 3-foot long blade shaped out of a planar rift because it is so insanely powerful. As soon as it appears, you can immediately make up to 2 melee spell attacks with it, each one against a creature or object within 5 feet of the rift that you create, because this sword can just appear within 60 feet of you and float around just like some of the other swords that you summon. Then on a hit, the target takes 10d6 force damage, and the attack scores a critical hit on an 18, 19, or 20 on the d20 die. And then on a bonus action on later turns, you can move it up to 60 feet and make 2 more attacks. This used to have an additional benefit of some more damage on a crit, but I think it's powerful enough as it is. The other big benefit is that if you have somebody that's really hunkering down and being defensive, this blade actually harmlessly passes through any barrier, including ones created by spells like Wall of Force. Now, that takes us to 9th level spellcasting, but there are other spells that he would know. They just might not always be prepared. So you got to take the 1st level spell Identify, or maybe Thunder Wave for slamming down with your sword really hard. Hell, Witch Bolt is actually pretty beneficial, even though it might not necessarily apply to the character. A 2nd level spell like Mirror Image is great for a defensive option. The 3rd level spell Cacophonic Shield, which I'm hoping I'm pronouncing right, basically creates a shield of energy around you that damages any enemies that get too close. The 4th level spell Arcane Eye really leans into the divination, giving you a floating eye to send forth and scout an area. You can have another defensive option with the 4th level spell Fire Shield. Then there's a few other spells I'll save for the character sheet that I throw up on Patreon, but you definitely want a bit more divination with his ability to kind of see the future a little bit, and you want a different option for your 9th level spell. Grab Foresight. It's absolutely amazing. It literally gives you advantage on everything you could roll a d20 on, while at the same time forcing disadvantage on any attacks against you. Then getting to 18th level of Wizard, you get Spell Mastery. So you get some spells that you can cast for free, but they require the spell to be an action to cast. Otherwise, you can grab Shield and constantly be boosting up your armor class, which is absolutely nuts. But instead, I had to grab another 1st level spell that I don't actually have prepared and grab Witch Bolt because it's generally pretty good now. It automatically latches on some lightning damage to an enemy. You just might have to roleplay this a bit differently if you want to stay true to character as Shulk from Xenoblade. Then as far as a 2nd level spell, grab Hold Person. It's way too beneficial to choose anything else because Hold Person is absolutely brutal, and to be able to just spam cast it is awesome. And then at 19th level of Wizard, you get to choose an epic boon. And I'm going to grab a newer spell from Eberron, and it's the Boon of Sybaris. It's another Dragonmark spell. This allows us to throw 1 point into intelligence, and there's one thing I kind of ignored with Shulk. That's that he does have some healing ability in Xenoblade. So I need a healing spell, and Wizard doesn't get a lot of those. But this will allow us a pretty powerful one, because now we can grab the spell Regenerate. It allows you to constantly regenerate health after a big boost of initial healing, and you can even regrow body parts if you need to. Then at 20th level of Wizard, you get signature spells. So you get to choose 2 3rd level spells. You always have those spells prepared without counting against your prepared spells number, and you can cast each of them once without expending a spell slot. So for a defensive option, grab Counterspell, and for a more alteration, grab Haste. Haste, you're going to wind up using so much, it's super beneficial to be able to activate that at least once for free. That brings you to 20th level overall, which is max level in Dungeons & Dragons. Although somebody in a recent comment did point out that you can technically go higher, but this is usually looked at as the max level. And this is how I would build Shulk from Xenoblade and Smash Bros. In Dungeons & Dragons. If you want access to the character sheet for this build or any of my other builds, feel free to check out my Patreon, linked in the comments and description down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know by hitting that like button, and I'll be here hoping to roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session, especially if you want to be a semi-socially awkward, magic sword-wielding character from Xenoblade and play as Shulk in your next Dungeons & Dragons session. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, chances are you might like one of my other videos, so YouTube thinks you might like this one. Feel free to check it out. It also really helps the channel because it pushes my videos to more people. But either way, check it out. I appreciate it. Thanks, bye.